What happens to men and women after they serve in the U.S. Army? Mary McCarthy reports a story based on an investigation by the Colorado Spring Daily that finds that the number of soldiers discharged for minor violations is currently on the rise. Many discharged soldiers need health care now more than ever, but they can no longer access the benefits that they once had.
Cash Alvaro enlisted in the U.S. Army when he was just 18. He was deployed to Iraq, then to Afghanistan, where he suffered a traumatic brain injury.
I got hit really bad October 23rd, 2009. That was my big changing point in life. It was April when I had my first serious seizure. And me personally, I didn't even know what happened. I thought I just passed out. I thought, oh, maybe I was dehydrated. So I was in a room with a friend. My eyes rolled back. And he said, from there, you just convulsed, your eyes went back in the back of your head, you got tight, you were shaking.
The condition made it tough for Cash to fulfill his duties. But rather than providing medical treatment, the Army said he was guilty of misconduct and discharged him.
Just like having your family turn on you. So you put all your trust in your family, right? So you tell them something, you want them to believe you and be there 100%. So it's just like that in the Army.
Veterans advocate George Andrew Pagani says that he's seen many cases like Cash's at Fort Carson and at other military bases across the United States.
You are taking an individual who is very, very severely ill and requires not just short-term but potentially long-term medical care, and you're sending them out into the community without an ability to have access to proper and appropriate medical care.
Cash ended up homeless and accumulated tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills. Officials at Fort Carson Army Base declined our request for an interview, but they issued a statement saying they do not discharge soldiers to avoid providing needed medical care and benefits. Meanwhile, lawmakers here in Colorado are calling for a federal probe into whether the Army is unfairly discharging wounded soldiers. And this is an issue that's unlikely to go away anytime soon, given the huge number of soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder or brain injuries.
Studies have shown that approximately 20% have experienced what we would call a probable traumatic brain injury. And so they've had experiences, they've suffered symptoms that would be indicative of having had a head injury while they were in theater. And we also find that about 18.5% suffer from either post-traumatic stress disorder or depression.
But Terry Tanelian says it would be premature to blame military commanders for targeting disabled veterans.
Understanding the nature of how these conditions affect those that are now going through the disability evaluation process, or who are going through medical discharge and separation, or who have been identified through other means is really undocumented and unknown. So I would say we really don't have very good answers about the extent of these problems, particularly among those who've been separated for other than honorable reasons.
Therapist Robert Alvarez, who specializes in treating veterans, says discharging soldiers who are dealing with brain injuries or post-traumatic stress disorder is unfair both to the individual and to the community.
When you release these people who aren't medically ready to return to society, then that burden becomes the community's. And often these individuals end up in the criminal justice system, they end up in the homeless system.
Cash is one of the lucky ones. He was eventually granted veterans medical benefits. But for many other discharged soldiers, getting the care they need is still an uphill battle. I'm Mary McCarthy for Teleser in Denver.